Light is one of the most important things, and it's easy to take for granted. Imagine you need to study for a test. How would you read if you can't see anything? Or what if there's an emergency in the middle of the night and an operation has to be performed? These are problems many people around the world face in their day-to-day lives, often having to travel many miles in the dark to find a place where there's light so they can study. According to We Share Solar, an organization committed to bringing solar energy to those who need it, the energy in 1 hour of sunlight shining on the Earth's surface is equal to the amount of energy consumed by everyone on the planet in an entire year. With education, instructions, and supplies provided by We Share Solar, our family got together to make a solar suitcase that will harness some of that energy to give light and power to people in Kenya who are without electricity. This mission particularly spoke to our grandpa from his own experiences. I'll let him tell it.
Now before we begin, make sure everybody silences their cell phones and pagers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, please don't ruin my talk. I'll ruin it on my own. Well, this is really nice to be with you. I've been excited about this weekend for a long time. This is called We Share Solar. And I'm just gonna give you a little story about my earliest memories of my life, okay? I was born in November 22nd of the year 1944. My parents were very young and living on a rented farm. Their life was very simple. There was no indoor bathrooms. There was no electric lights. The house was also very, very small. That's how I remember the earliest part of my life. And we moved to another farm, a little bit bigger house, but the same situation, no electricity. Well, I remember we, as a family, and this would have been, I would have probably been barely 3-4 years old. Coming home, we were driving, my dad was driving the car, and we pulled up into the yard, and everything is dark. And so he gets out of the car, he goes into the room of the house in the dark, and then he come out after a little bit holding a lantern so that my mother and I could see our way into the house. That was very impressionable to me, that he could hold up the light so we could get into the house. I also remember my father in the winter, the days are short, so he would go out to milk the cow or feed the animals in the barn. What I remember is looking out the window, and he had a lantern that he had lit. You know, he would walk with his arms swinging with the lantern, going to the barn. And what I remember is that the further away he was, the less I could see of him, and the only thing I could see is the swinging light. And that's all the light he had when he went out to feed and water the animals. That's the kind of memories I have when I was little. Amazingly different than it is today. And also in the kitchen, we had a lamp that was attached to the wall. And then when that would be lit, that's when my mother could cook at night. And then we could eat with that light when it was supper time. So I wanted you to know that's part of my history, my personal life and memory very early. In 1949, so I would have been about 5 years old now. That's when electricity came to our house. And I will never forget, the men were out and they were putting a big pole in the middle of our farm. And then there was a light that was attached to the pole. And we called it the yard light. And when night came, that yard light automatically went on. This was 1949. Man, was that ever something. You could look outside in the night and see what was around, you know. My dad didn't have to go with the lantern anymore. And lights were put in the barn and in the house too. I think you should know that the first thing that my mother bought after we got electricity, a popcorn popper. She loved popcorn. And that was the first electric thing that she bought, other than the lights, you see. We're in a whole nother place. We got electric light here. It's 75 years after my story I told you. And I came across something that was called Solar Suitcase. So when I heard about what they were doing, I thought, man, I gotta do that. I want to know more about that. That is a really neat thing, because it was something that was going to help other people. They had pictures, you see, of them sitting around a table with a lantern like my father had. The kids were sitting around reading and doing whatever work or things they wanted to do. I'm sure there's thousands, millions of people that have gone through this in our world. I found out that the guy that was making the program of Minnesota Renewable Energy Society or something like that, MRES. It turns out that he and I grew up just a few miles from each other as children in South Dakota without electricity. And he went to college too, but not the same one I did. And then he ended up wanting to become an electrician because he was really interested in electricity. So here he is, and then I find out we're related. My aunt and his uncle had married way back in the previous generation to both of us. So I found a long lost extended relative out of this thing too. So this is just really great. The best way to see in the dark is to turn on a light.
This person's recording.
So is that person.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Maybe you can hold.
Sure.
You know, it was a really cool experience. Like, it was really fun. Learning something new is always good, but the fact that knowing that we're helping people out while we're learning something new at the same time is just like it's like twice as awesome. So, and it was nice that they kind of dumbed it down for us simpletons a little bit, but it was good. It was fun.
This is where you put like epic action music in the background.
It was a lot of fun. Putting it together was a little bit more complicated in some ways and not as complicated in other ways as I thought it was going to be, but it was a lot of fun. So.
The brain is energized.
Excited about this weekend for a long time. This is called We Share Solar.
And here we have our art crew and our finished product. And everybody that had a part in it signed their first name. This is from Grandpa Don's family. Solar energy is so bright, it's smart.
I had a fun time wiring like the little light switches we did over there. I heard the stories about what's happening and it's really sad. And I'm really glad to like help with the problems with around them. So I think it's amazing.
Have a comment about your experience.
I don't know.
Oh,
I was a captain.
yeah.
I was in robotics, so I understood some of the stuff. But it wasn't that complicated. It made it pretty simple, pretty easy to do. So, like, I feel like middle schoolers probably could easily do this. It's not that complicated. So
Okay.
it was a good experience if you don't have any like form of robotics experience. But yeah, the wiring wasn't that complicated, but it was cool. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.